Get some! Turks, Jay Granick is with you guys on a lovely Tuesday afternoon / evening. We have lovely news for you guys, do we? Some lovely news. Some interesting.
We have news.
We definitely have news, and it's definitely interesting. So, having said that, let us get to the aforementioned interesting news.
Well, we've got some updates on one of Trump's multiple criminal investigations. So let's do it. Former President Donald Trump could be facing additional criminal indictments this summer. That's news coming from the Fulton County District Attorney, Fani Willis, who has sent a letter to a top law enforcement official in the state of Georgia to essentially set a timeline in regard to when they can expect criminal charges if she files criminal charges against Trump. Now, this particular investigation has to do with Trump's efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 election in Georgia. In her letter, Willis, again, the district attorney in Fulton County, Georgia, said that any charges would come during the court term that runs between July 11th and September 1st of this year. Her office has spent more than 2 years investigating whether Trump and his cronies illegally meddled in Georgia's 2020 election. Trump did lose that state to Biden, and after he did, he hit up the election officials in the state to basically demand that they find ballots that would overturn the results of the election from Biden to Trump. In fact, there's some evidence to that point, and here it is.
I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state. The people of Georgia are angry. The people of the country are angry. And there's nothing wrong with saying that, that you've recalculated.
CBS News has confirmed that this was one of at least 18 attempted calls from the White House to Secretary Raffensperger.
Now, Willis has a tough case ahead of her because there's just really a lack of evidence here. What is she gonna do? How would she bring these charges considering the lack of evidence, Cenk?
Yeah. So this has a ton of political implications, obviously, right? And I think that there might be a tipping point issue in terms of this beginning to finally hurt Donald Trump. We'll get to that in a second. In terms of the substance of it, look, I'm not of the same mind as a lot of the other pundits. So I think that the Stormy Daniels case is actually the most open and shut. He definitely did it. His co-conspirator went to prison for 3 years. People say, oh, we just got him on hush money to a porn star. I don't care what it's about. Did he break the law or didn't he? And how much evidence do you have? On that case, we have overwhelming evidence. In this case in Georgia, it should be a lot tougher to prove because you have to prove that he didn't just ask for votes to be found that were legitimately his, but votes to be found that were not legitimately his and to rig the election, right? So it's super easy to get away with this crime by just being a little vague, right? The problem for Trump is he's an idiot and he can't be a little vague.
He ain't vague.
No, and
he was actually the specificity in the number of ballots he wanted Raffensperger to find is pretty incredible.
No,
right?
guys, the only way that you could get convicted for this crime is to do exactly what Trump just did.
It's amazing.
He's like, I need 11,780 votes. No, you're supposed to say, hey, are you sure the recount is right, right? Now, first of all, you're not supposed to do any of that. You're supposed to accept the Democratic elections as they actually are, not as you wish them to be, right? But by the way, asking Georgia election officials or any state officials, are you sure? I have a legal right to a recount, a hand recount. No problem.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Zero.
Exactly. Yeah.
And in fact, Georgia did several of those recounts, including a hand recount. So Trump asking for those is not remotely illegal, right? But when after all that is done, he calls and says, give me 11,780 votes, one more than I need to win. And then he says, why don't you recalculate? Instead of saying, hey, are you sure that you got the count right? Are you sure that you don't have any missing ballots? He's being as brazenly illegal as he could possibly be. You know how he likes to say, I had a perfect call, in his first impeachment, I had a perfect call with the leader of Ukraine. I mean, this kind of was a perfect call in the opposite direction.
Yeah, it's a perfect call for the prosecution.
Exactly.
Right, so obviously I was being sarcastic when I noted that there was a lack of evidence. There's clearly some pretty significant evidence, you just heard it. Now, let's rewind a little bit to kind of give you the background on this investigation and this case. Because prior to the possibility of criminal indictments being brought forth to a jury, a grand jury, there was a special jury involved, right? So what happened with this special jury? Special jury that heard evidence in the case for roughly 7 months, recommended more than a dozen people for indictments, and its forewoman strongly hinted in an interview with the New York Times in February that Trump was among them. So I actually went back to read that piece from back in February by the New York Times to see what the actual statement was. The forewoman that they're referring to is Emily Kors, asked whether the jurors had recommended indicting Trump. Kors would not answer directly, but said, you're not going to be shocked. It's not rocket science. It's not going to be some giant plot twist. You probably have a fair idea of what may be in there. I'm trying very hard to say that delicately. So that was the provocative statement that she gave to the Times back in February. Real quick, before I go to you, Cenk, but keep in mind that ultimately it is up to Fani Willis, the prosecutor, to make the decision as to who gets charged, what the charges might be, and she will bring those charges to a grand jury to move forward with this case if she chooses to. But it does seem as though she intends to move forward with this case.
So Anna's giving you the facts, I'll give you the analysis. Two things, number one, yeah, they're definitely indicting Trump. And number two, meaning that he's among the 12. And number two, they're definitely gonna go forward with it. And so why do I say that? Especially given that there's been a lot of talk about Trump indictments and it's taken forever and ever and ever. And most of the time it's just a lot of baloney and just Democrats trying to grab headlines. In this case, in her letter, she talks over and over again about the need for security.
Yes.
They don't need security for 11 other bozos, okay? So it's like, oh my God, they have indicted Jim Jablowski, who was helping Trump at the local level. That guy's under a bus already, right? He's under a tank. Trump's not gonna give him a dime. No one cares, his voters don't care. No, the only reason you need that kind of massive security is because Trump is among the names and you're definitely going to indict him, okay?
Right, and her letter, just to give you even more context, was sent to Sheriff Patrick Labat. I actually want to read excerpts from the letter to kind of buttress what Cenk is saying here in regard to the calls for additional security when these indictments are announced. She writes, quote, in the near future, I will announce charging decisions resulting from the investigation my office has been conducting into possible criminal interference in the administration of Georgia's 2020 general election. I am providing this letter to bring to your attention the need for heightened security and preparedness in coming months due to this pending announcement.
Yeah, they're definitely indicting him.
By the way, she has some members of her staff wear bulletproof vests.
I know, yeah.
Which is crazy.
It is, but on the other hand, right-wingers are violent. And so-
No, I'm not saying it's crazy that she's having them wear the vest. It's crazy that we live in this era where political violence has become normalized.
Yeah, it's so normal that we have to prepare for it ahead of time, et cetera. Yeah. All right, so let's get to the beef, which is how does this affect the election and politics and stuff? So look, I always believe that that they're like, first when everybody said after the midterms Trump is done, you saw us here say that's not remotely true. Trump not only still has a great chance, but he wavers from a 50-50 election to being the overwhelming favorite. He was never, ever the underdog. So there was too much hype about the demise of Donald Trump that was never true. Now they're in reverse and they say, oh my God, he got indicted. That only helps him in the polling. It's over. Trump's definitely gonna be the candidate. That's also not true. And so one indictment is one thing, but 3 or 4 of them, it starts to pile up and people get tired, right? Even like hardcore MAGA never gets tired, but the rest of the Republican electorate, as much as you can make a distinction between hardcore MAGA and 93% of Republicans that voted for Trump last time. So when this one comes in, as it looks like it's definitely gonna come in, and probably at least a third one comes in, I think that Republican voters are gonna start to get really worried, right? And by the way, a huge point in my favor in that kind of prediction or whatever you wanna call it, is that after he got the initial bump from the first indictment, in the last couple of weeks, he's lost 10 points. So it went up and then now it's coming back down. So the thing is, he needs someone who's really good at this to knock his ass out in the midst of all of these legal troubles, etc. Not necessarily now, but as the indictments pile up. Well, I don't know that we got that, guys. You'll see later in the show, DeSantis is weak. So, and Trump is pummeling him.
Trump is pummeling him and has now put out one of the most vicious and I would argue effective ads against DeSantis. I can't wait to show that to you guys and talk about that in more detail. But I think, I don't know, my prediction on this is a little different, Cenk. I think that Trump is inevitably going to win the Republican nomination. And when it really comes down to it, the election will be decided by independent voters. So is this gonna turn independent voters off? Are they willing to overlook some of Biden's flaws and vote for him, considering all the chaos that comes along with Trump? That's the real question. And we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, look, this election could be the most boring and worst election of our lifetimes as it's a Biden and Trump rematch. Oh, literally nobody in the country wants that except hardcore MAGA and hardcore establishment knuckleheads Democrats in DC, but those are like 14 guys, right? The rest of the Democratic Party doesn't want it either. But yeah, it certainly could be that. Or you got wild cards galore. I mean, this guy, if he's indicted 3-4 times, really he's gonna run in the midst of all those court cases. Remember, Trump might make a deal and to get out of the race, but to get rescued from all these indictments. So who knows, right? And then on the Democratic side, Biden's gonna make it all the way to the election? I don't know. Well, I don't know.
Now would be a great time to talk about that because Biden decided to launch his re-election campaign today.
When I ran for president 4 years ago, I said we're in a battle for the soul of America, and we still are. The question we're facing is whether in the years ahead, we have more freedom or less freedom, more rights or fewer. I know what I want the answer to be, and I think you do too. This is not a time to be complacent. That's why I'm running for re-election.
President Joe Biden has officially announced his re-election bid, and he did so by putting out a 3-minute long announcement video that urges Americans to get together and finish the job. The video was meant to be inspiring, but also took some jabs at Republicans and what they've done to roll back some of the freedoms that Americans were able to enjoy previously. So let's go to that and then we'll discuss.
Freedom. Personal freedom is fundamental to who we are as Americans. There's nothing more important, nothing more sacred. That's been the work of my first term, to fight for our democracy. This shouldn't be a red or blue issue. To protect our rights, to make sure that everyone in this country is treated equally and that everyone is given a fair shot at making it. But you know, around the country, MAGA extremists are lining up to take on those bedrock freedoms, cutting Social Security that you've paid for your entire life while cutting taxes for the very wealthy, dictating what healthcare decisions women can make, banning books, and telling people who they can love.
And that was about as harsh as Biden was in his announcement video. I think that it was right for him to point to all these different issues that are unpopular among GOP politicians. Certainly the rollback of reproductive rights helped the Democratic Party during the 2022 midterms. But I have to also be honest, I watched that announcement video immediately after watching Trump's latest attack ad against Ron DeSantis. And I wish I hadn't done that because it left me wanting more from Biden.
Yeah, no, that's funny because I did it in reverse order. I'm gonna be much more harsh. That ad sucked. It was 3 minutes and I nearly dozed off in the middle. Like it felt like 3 hours. It was just platitude after platitude of I'm for freedom and America is great.
There was a lot about individual freedom, which it's so interesting to hear the Democratic Party take on the jargon, the rhetoric that we typically would have heard from the Republican Party back in the day. Like this emphasis on individual freedom.
No, I know why, because that Biden's whole career has been copying Republicans. That's all he ever does. He just copies Republicans and says, but I'm less vicious. Okay, it's not a red issue, it's not a blue issue. What's their talking points? I mean, by the end, he's gonna be like, make America spectacular again. Okay, come on, dude, come up with something original. Like in that ad, he did everything but puppies are cute. It was so boring. That 15 seconds you saw of him attacking MAGA extremists, that's it. That's the only part that was interesting in the ad. The other 2 minutes and 45 seconds are nothing. There's cotton balls. And that's Joe Biden. He's a terrible candidate. Terrible.
So after he made his announcement, the Republican National Committee put out their response video. It's getting a lot of attention because it's allegedly generated 100% by AI, which is really scary because it doesn't seem like it's generated by AI. It's actually pretty well done. And as you can imagine, I mean, it's coming from the Republican National Committee. It's pretty vicious. Let's watch.
We can now call the 2024 presidential race for Joe Biden.
My fellow Americans.
This morning, an emboldened China invades Taiwan. Financial markets are in free fall as 500 regional banks have shuttered their doors.
Border agents were overrun by a surge of 80,000 illegals yesterday evening.
Officials closed the city of San Francisco this morning, citing the escalating crime and fentanyl crisis.
Who's in charge here?
It feels like the train is coming off the track.
Now notice how that response video to Biden's re-election announcement talks about the future if Biden gets elected and didn't really attack Biden on the 4 years, or not the 4 years, but the amount of time he's been in office already, like what he has done in office already. I would venture to say that if they had things to attack him on, then they would have used that. Instead, they just made things up that could happen in the future if he gets reelected.
No, that ad sucked. Trump's ads against DeSantis are 1,000 times better. Okay, so the reason why that ad sucked is there's a great number of reasons. Number one, this is exactly the ads they ran against Biden last time and they lost on those ads. Second of all, they said all this stuff was already gonna happen in this first term, but it didn't. So it really falls flat. So for the extreme MAGA crowd, they're gonna love this, right? They're like, oh my God, it's an imminent collapse of society. They love that. They got their canned tuna ready. They got all their ammunition ready. They bought gold. They're ready, right? But it hasn't happened. It's not gonna happen. They're still looking for the FEMA camps that Obama set up.
I mean, look.
Right. So, but outside of that crowd, this is gonna feel stupid and a retread and things that didn't happen and looks ridiculous. And in the beginning, they're like, imagine if Biden is reelected. Wait, so you agree that he was elected?
That's right.
And if it's Trump, are we really going to run a whole campaign where Trump pretends that he won last time? That's crazy, right? So I mean, we all know that like the only reason why Biden has any chance of winning is because Trump might be the nominee on the other side, and he's literally the only politician in the country less popular than Joe Biden. Biden's at 38%, Trump's at 34%.
Which is why the Democratic Party is elated that things seem to be shaping up as a rematch between Biden and Trump. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that because look, my concern is when Democrats get a little too cocky. And it does appear to be the case here, similar 100%. To how they were in 2016. Don't take this situation for granted, don't underestimate your opponent. And I see a little bit of that happening now, according to reporting from Politico. So Politico spoke to a number of Democrats, And some, to be fair, are skeptical at the cockiness. But I'll start with the Democrats who think this is great. This is a win for Biden. Democrats aren't blind to his stubbornly low approval ratings, but they also know Trump's polarizing profile, including an indictment, his fixation on the 2020 election, and polarizing profile both within his own party and among independents could be their best matchup in 2024. So that's the general gist of how the establishment Democratic Party is feeling about this situation. Let's go to Debbie Stabenow, who of course is a Democratic senator. She's retiring, but Stabenow thinks this is the best possible outcome, meaning a matchup between Trump and Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Trump's obviously an extremely dangerous person who would be very dangerous for the country, but I'm confident that President Biden would beat him. Politically, for us, it's helpful if Trump is front and center. Broadly, she says, the public rejects him. So, look, I agree that this is ultimately gonna come down to the independent voters, and Trump does rub people the wrong way.
But he is anti-establishment, which independent voters love.
Also, Trump has shown that he is planning to go back to what made him so popular in 2016, which is this hyper focus on faux populism, faux economic populism.
Yeah.
He didn't do much of that in 2020.
That's right, and he's talking nonstop about corruption. Now, it's self-serving and he's claiming that his arrests are corruption, but American people hate corruption and no other politicians allowed to talk about it because the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, and most importantly, corporate media will rip their face off if they mention the thing that we all know exists, which is massive corruption in Washington, right? The reporters will not let you report on that if their life's dependent on it. There's no way. The first person who talks about corruption, they smear job after smear job after, but Trump doesn't care. He's been smeared 2,000 times. He's just gonna keep saying the word corrupt, and that's gonna resonate. So, look, do you want to talk about playing with fire and being overconfident? You know what Trump's approval rating was on election day in 2016, the day that he won? It was 36%.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I went back and checked because I was writing it in my book, and I went back and found the sources, 36%.
Well, you went back and looked at that. I actually wanted to go back to find the numbers in regard to the key battleground states where Biden beat Trump, because it was really down to 3 key battleground states. And it's important to understand that and know that, because when it comes to the Electoral College, Biden barely won, barely. Okay, so let me give you the actual details on that. Let's go to the last graphic here. The tight races in the trio of states, and the trio includes Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin, had a big electoral impact. As NPR's Domenico Montanaro has put it, just 44,000 votes in Georgia, Arizona, and Wisconsin separated Biden and Trump from a tie in the Electoral College. Okay, so I give you that because those numbers are razor thin in these key battleground states in 2020. And Trump had the stink of the coronavirus pandemic on him. He did not campaign on the economic populism that he tapped into in 2016. He seems far more aware and willing to tap back into that for 2023. I'm just saying that I hope Democrats didn't learn all the wrong lessons from the midterm elections. I think that they've become a little overconfident after that.
100%.
Right?
I'll go way further. So when in political they say, oh, now the Democrats are not blind to Joe Biden's problems. No, they are. They're definitely blind to it. When you tell them that people that he polls at 38%, they're like, no, but he got a lot accomplished. First of all, that's not true. But even if it were true, it doesn't matter. What matters is, do people like him or don't they like him? Because we're about to go into a popularity contest called an election. So you know that, so Biden won by that razor thin margin because of younger voters. They showed up 11% more than they did in 2016. It made all of the difference. It's the only reason Biden won. You know what Biden's popularity is among younger voters now? Now remember, younger voters are very progressive, and Joe Biden is apparently the second coming of FDR according to Democrats, right? He's polling at 25%. Among young voters, he's got to be at like 75% among young voters. He's at 25%. It's not like that they like Trump, But they really have no interest in Joe Biden.
Another thing to keep in mind, though, is remember the DNC is intentionally suppressing primary challengers by refusing to hold any primary debates. And when you look at how young people on TikTok feel toward Marianne Williamson, I think the DNC is actually hurting Biden by making it clear that they're trying to suppress primary challengers like Marianne Williamson, who seems to be popular with young voters.
By the way, so we're equal opportunity truth tellers. Trump pulled a bitch move today, and he's like, "I'm not going to debate." Okay,
which is so stupid.
That's so dumb. Stupid. Are you kidding me? Trump, you'd rip DeSantis' face off in a debate. But okay, good, don't debate, whatever. Okay, I don't want Trump to win. I hate Trump. So I'm honest about our opinions. But I'm telling, and number one reason I'm worried about Biden is because I think he's going to lose, right? But whenever you say it on TV or in the press at all, the swarm of locusts of DNC consultants attack, and they're like, "Hey, Biden's the only one who could win." You guys, you're playing with fire. You're playing with all of our lives. You're playing with democracy. He won at 36% last time around. He could easily be at 36% and win this time around. You guys almost blew it the last time. You definitely blew it the time before. It's the same clowns. And now we're gonna have two guys that are above 76 years old. They're both going to be hiding in their basements, right? Neither one is gonna debate. This is the worst election ever. No one wants either one of the candidates. Our democracy is in shambles.
Yep.
And they forced literally the two most unpopular politicians in the country as our only two choices. It's disgusting.
Pretty devastating, and I agree with that analysis 100%. We gotta take a break. When we come back, I gotta be honest, probably one of the most vicious Trump ads, this time attacking DeSantis, of course. You don't wanna miss it. We've got that and more coming up.
All right, back on TYT. Let's go to YouTube members first. Vicky Gray gifted 5 Young Turks memberships. Vicky, you're awesome. Athletes LLC gifted 20 Young Turks memberships. Way to go, Athletes LLC. Chris Birch, 5 Young Turks memberships. You guys are all the best. And Serenity Now is a new member. We appreciate it, guys. You can all do likewise in terms of signing up for membership. You know where the button is. The join button's below the video on YouTube.
And my button's bigger than your button.
Well, we're gonna get to your button in a second. Okay, there's comments.
Wait,
there's
what?
comments. You'll see. Okay, tyt.com/join to become a member. By the way, speaking of Anna, tyt.com/vote to make her viral video #1 at the Webbies. It'd be awesome if she won a Webby for that viral rant on abortion.
Yeah.
And
you know what? For the first time, I actually do feel like plugging that. Like,
yeah.
I hate that I'm up against this like adorable kid, but like,
you gotta stop saying that.
But he's so
we
cute.
We need to crush him. No, I'm kidding. But
guys,
you're so needlessly honest.
Because I love that kid. He's so adorable.
Oh, stop it. What are you, a Democrat? You make an ad for him every time we do plug this thing. Jesus, man.
But I guess vote for me. No, but like it would be nice to win.
No.
No, I want to win.
It's not even, okay guys, she's driving me crazy.
Okay.
Because it's not the kid. The kid's randomly in the video. He didn't produce the video.
That's true.
It's gonna be some random that wins.
No, you know what? I saw the guy that interviewed the cute kid and he was just some like white hipster guy. And he's the one who's actually gonna win in the end.
Of course, it's not the kid.
Vote for me.
Yeah.
Vote for me.
tyt.com/vote.
I'll share the honor with the kid.
No, will you stop it, Joe Biden/Joe Donnelly? Okay, some of my best friends are my competitors. Okay, anyway, also tyt.com/shorties for best in news media. To win a shorty. So the two big awards are Webbies and Shorties. Winning in news and media would be awesome, and so we'd love it if you could do that. And I think you could vote multiple times on that one, and you could And so drive Republicans crazy, vote many times. TYT.com/shorties. Okay, so now let's go to YouTube members. Eva Women writes in, I think it's a good conclusion that she's going to indict 45. We agree. Crystal Sheets writes in, Anna's a thirst trap today.
What?
So there's a partial reference to buttons. Other people talking about her dress and how much they like it.
Well, thank you.
Although I don't know that it has any buttons, but still.
It does on the straps in the back. You could like wear them cross.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Serenity Now, who just joined, says, there's a couple of votes behind my couch. I mean, that's kind of what Trump was asking for. David Morris says, dude, thanks for my membership, TYT. So that's the other members looking out for you guys. So I love the community working together like that. Mr. Anderson says, you gotta be a great gaslighter to get America's attention. Like everybody in power is a gaslighter now. I can't stand it, it drives me crazy. I'm out of time, we'll be right back. TYT.com/whatever. All right, back on TYT. I just read a whole bunch of names during the social media break of people who just joined. We appreciate it, guys. You can do likewise at TYT.com/join. But I wanted to read from one of our YouTube members. Anthony McClendon wrote in, good evening, guys. I've been a long supporter of #Anna was right due to her amazing ability to see through people and their BS. Here, here.
Thank you.
Now that Tucker departed Fox in exactly the way he predicted, #Cenk was right.
Yep. No, I guess we're in the prediction business because we predict all the time, and it turns out that we make pretty good predictions.
Yeah, look, man, like with the psychics, if we could just turn that a little bit towards the stock market, we might finally have some money for the left wing. Okay, the problem is all of our predictions are in politics. Yeah. So them becoming right is actually depressing because we always predict things that are not going to go well and they never go well and we're right, right?
True. Although
Tucker leaving, that went well.
You did make one giant, terrible prediction that never came to fruition.
About Trump?
Yeah.
Hold on, I'm gonna fix that one.
Okay, but you already lost it.
I know, but let's see. I always have plans.
All right,
I always have plans.
Okay.
All right, let's go forward.
All right, you guys, buckle up. Brace for impact. This is my personal favorite story of the day because of how much fun it is. Let's do it.
Ron DeSantis was struggling big time in his primary race for governor of Florida. Polls revealed DeSantis was failing so bad, he was losing by a staggering 17 points. Then DeSantis was saved by the endorsement of President Trump.
The PAC for Donald Trump has put out one of the most vicious political ads I have ever encountered. Of course, it's against Ron DeSantis. That has been Trump's focus for months now. And wait till you hear how much money Trump's PAC is spending on hitting DeSantis where it hurts. But before we do that, let's watch a little more of that viciousness.
Trump's support was so powerful. Just 2 days after the endorsement, DeSantis took a commanding lead and it propelled him to being elected governor.
I'd like to thank our president for standing by me when it wasn't necessarily the smart thing to do.
You're welcome, Ron. Unfortunately, instead of being grateful, DeSantis is now attacking the very man who saved his career. Isn't it time DeSantis remembers how he got to where he is?
Make America great again. Big league. So good. Build the wall. Then Mr. Trump said, "You're fired." I love that part.
Truth is, there's only one person who can make America great again.
Murda.
Yeah.
187, that's what that was.
Yeah, 187 on a Florida governor. Yeah. So this is what Trump's good at. And so this is PAC, and it's not Trump directing it, but the fish in this case does the right things politically from the head down. Because Trump gives them a green light, because these super PACs are all liars, right? They say, oh, we don't coordinate. No, DeSantis isn't in the race yet, so he hasn't unleashed his PAC, and they haven't spent any money attacking Donald Trump. That's because DeSantis told him not to, because he's not even sure he's gonna get in the race, in my opinion.
He hasn't even announced announced yet.
I know.
He hasn't even announced yet, and Trump's like, no, I'm gonna murder you anyway.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Yeah.
And Trump gave the green light to his PAC, obviously, to go behead Ron DeSantis.
Yeah.
He said, I want that meatball on a platter, okay? And
Mohammed bin Salman's jealous.
Well, wow, okay. So we said it's a metaphor, it's a metaphor.
Yeah.
Okay, but guys, all of these ads are devastating. These ads are amazing. And look, it leads me to think two things. One, Biden's not gonna run ads like this. Biden, we just showed you earlier in the show, Biden's 3-minute ad. We nearly fell asleep in the middle of it. Biden's gonna run ads about my Republican friends. I love them so much. I want them to be wonderful and strong and terrific. Oh, you're voting for them? Damn it, right? So Trump's gonna rip Biden's head off this time around. So that's one issue, right? Second, I don't know if DeSantis is gonna get in this race, man. I mean this is brutal. And the ad, the other part of it is that it's true. The ad is true. Yeah, okay, DeSantis was dead in the water. Trump did rescue him, and Trump, see, he has no. There are no rules, he has no constraints. So he looks like a mob boss in that ad. I guarantee you Democratic consultants would be like, oh no, that looks really bad. You look like you're intimidating him and you're leering over me. It looks like you're a mob boss. And Trump would say, goddamn right I do. And his voters love that.
I love that you're thinking about this in the context of Trump versus Biden, which I think is the right way to think of it because that's what we're thinking about moving forward. But as I watch this Trump ad against DeSantis, I can't help but feel a gigantic sense of envy because I wish we had progressive candidates that were willing to use this type of political attacks and ads against corporate Democrats that they run against.
Or even Republicans.
Or Republicans, exactly, yeah, 100%.
No, I know, look man, Rebellion PAC just doesn't have enough money. Go to rebellionpac.com because we'll run ads like this all day long. But we need more resources to make that happen. Yeah. So, but look, to Anna's point, so the DC people look at this and go, oh my God, you guys are helping Donald Trump by saying his ads are good. And if you just shut up and we all pretend Biden's ads are good, he'll win.
Yeah, except we're not.
That's not how it works.
We're not in the puppet business.
Yeah, so there's two massive problems with that. It's not even true. That's what all of media did for Hillary Clinton, and she didn't win. So this whole idea of, oh, we're just gonna brainwash everybody into thinking that these corporate Democrats are really for the American people, okay? It just doesn't work.
I thought she didn't win because of Susan Sarandon.
Oh yeah, of course. Okay. But the second more important reason is, no, our job is to be honest with you guys, okay? And it doesn't help to be dishonest. So no, those are killer ads.
They are.
And DeSantis is almost like, he's lost 20 points, almost 30 points in some polls before he even put his shoes on. And Trump, when it comes to politics, is a killer.
Now, Trump is also willing to spend a considerable amount of money on these attack ads. If you're wondering where all that fundraising went to, right? The fundraising where he claimed to be trying to raise the resources necessary to fight the results of the 2020 election. He didn't actually spend that money on what he claimed he was gonna spend it on. Looks like he's spending it on this. Because since April, the super PAC, Make America Great Again, Inc., has been launching a $1.5 million ad campaign every week. And Ron DeSantis hasn't even announced yet.
Yeah, so I mean, it's such a classic Trump thing too. A stop the steal, I'm really worried about it. Oh my God, those patriots on January 6th, we need to protect them. Doesn't send them a dime. He hoards all the money for himself. Of course he does. And now he's spending it fighting another Republican.
It's insane. Okay, but DeSantis also keeps stepping in it. So recently he was in Japan and he was asked about Donald Trump and the election, and his response was so awkward. I don't know what is going on with this guy. I mean, I guess the higher they rise, the harder they fall. And I think we're watching him, witnessing him fall as we speak. Here's an example of that.
Governor, polls show you falling behind Trump. Any thoughts on that?
Guys, I'm not a candidate, so we'll see if and when that changes.
But what happened with that face, though?
Yeah, what happened with that head?
In case you missed it, there it is. It's gonna be all right. Act normal.
Yeah, I know, he's so nervous. The race hasn't even started and he's like nervous. So forget these pictures, those pictures are funny, but the head movement was my favorite part. I rewatched it like 3 times. I'm like, is this real or did somebody AI this thing? Because he's like, I'm not a candidate yet. Look at him, he's doing the same.
He's so uncomfortable.
Oh, Jesus.
Now he had a sit down interview with Sean Hannity as well, and he was asked about Trump's attacks. Let's take a look at his answer.
The last time I interviewed President Trump, I was there in 2018, and I always saw the two of you as friends. And I said to him, a very simple question I asked him, I said, what happened? And I think it's only fair to ask you the same question. What do you think happened?
You know, I enjoyed supporting him when he was president. We worked really hard for his reelection in Florida. And I always had a good relationship with him. And then once the midterm election happened, he started taking shots at me. I didn't really do anything to do it except do a good job. But that's fine. I mean, Sean, you know, when you're making things happen, you take incoming from a variety of targets. So that's just the nature of the business.
All right, so obviously he was not doing a sit-down interview. He was still in Tokyo as Hannity was interviewing him. I don't know why DeSantis's team put him directly in front of the sun for the interview, but that was awkward. I missed what he said though. I think we need to watch it one more time with some special effects to enhance the experience.
What do you think happened?
You know, I enjoyed supporting him when he was president. We worked really hard for his reelection in Florida. And I always had a good relationship with him. And then once the midterm election happened, he started taking shots at me. I didn't really do anything to do it except do a good job.
Poor Ronnie.
Yeah. Look, politicians, this is why Trump wins. Politicians don't know how to be real people. It's such an easy answer. Why don't you say, here's what happened. It looks like we're gonna run against each other in the upcoming Republican primary, so he started attacking me. And by the way, so DeSantis doesn't want to say he's running yet. So it's still super easy to do it. Apparently Trump thinks I'm gonna run against him and he's worried about it. So he started attacking me and no one else. I guess that's because he thinks I'm the leading candidate. I haven't even made up my mind yet. Hey, Donnie, bring it down, okay? So,
you scared?
And look, if you're scared, maybe you should run ads against Democrats. Oh, you're more scared of me than you are of Democrats, because you think I could beat you. But okay, hey, whatever. Just be light, man. Just answer real way instead of like doing the, I don't know what happened. I didn't do anything to him. I swear I didn't do anything to him.
The final thing that I want to say about all of this is, considering how much stronger Trump appears in comparison to Ron DeSantis, considering how scared Ron DeSantis appears to be, it is puzzling to me that Trump does not want to debate in the Republican primaries. Well, so that's a news story. He says he doesn't want to do the debates. Does he not realize that, as much as I hate to admit this, that's where he tends to perform pretty well,
especially in Republican primaries. So when he got to the general election with Biden, he clowned himself because he has no brakes in the car. So he was like swerving out of control and it turned off independent voters and it turned off a lot of voters and drove him to Biden. But when he's in a Republican primary and he has no brakes in the car, the Republican voters love it. When he's smashing into everyone, telling them his penis size and calling them like little Marco and low energy Jeb.
Lying Ted.
Lying Ted. His wife is ugly. His dad's a killer. Okay, the Republicans eat that stuff up. Yeah, but I'd be surprised if he didn't debate because I think what he's listening to now is consultants telling him, no, you have like a 20 to 30 point lead. People with that big a lead don't debate. They try to run away from debates. And that's what Biden's trying to do. He's like, oh no, I am above it. I am the president. Dude, you're worried about being able to put 2 sentences together in a debate. Let's keep it real as to why the DNC is trying to end debates. But great, we have 2 guys who are right now by far leading in the race to become the Republican and Democratic nominees. And they both don't want to debate. They both have no interest in the democratic process. They both want to run their campaigns from a basement. But one guy is surrounded by pillows and the other one's got some serious weapons, and you just saw him unleash one of those, right? So Trump is launching nukes from his basement and Biden's launching pillows.
but not my pillows.
Yeah, no, definitely not those. And so far, Ron DeSantis is launching nothing. So Meatball, get in the game.
All right, when we come back from the break, an explosive story that I wish got a lot more attention, how the Sackler family basically corrupted an incredibly important non-governmental organization that provides advisement on incredibly important policies that have to do with pharmaceutical drugs.
And later in the show, you want to talk about a catfight. Forget DeSantis and Trump. Wait till you see Steven Crowder and Candace Owens. Woof. Man, that's some face ripping. So, all right, we got that in a little bit. Stay right here. Back on TOT. Let's do a super chat first. Shane McAndrew says, who do you think are the worst media critics who ultimately are just centrists? I think Bill Maher and Soledad O'Brien both are awful in different ways and they'll kiss Biden's butt. P.S. Tucker would Biden in a general election? I'm not sure what you meant there, Shane. Okay, so who's the worst centrist in establishment media? Correct answer, all of them. Okay, so Bill Maher, yeah, he'll say things against Trump, which by the way, the one upside of Bill Maher is at least he doesn't mind saying vicious things about Trump. Like the rest of them are super soft on Trump. And so then Maher will be like super centrist Democrat afterwards. But at least he's half right. So I'll take the correct half, right? Soledad O'Brien is a really good person, as most of them are, but she just can't get out of the headspace of the establishment. And so she's never met an establishment politician that she didn't think was terrific on the Democratic side. She's never met a challenger that she liked. She's never met anyone who challenged power that she thought was credible. And so it's sad because she's a really good and decent person, but they all have the same groupthink. And they don't think they were brainwashed at all. But they all magically all agreed to the same thing, including agreeing to absurdities like Biden's the only one who could beat Trump when Biden is deeply unpopular.
Look,
that's an absurd thing to say, and they just can't see straight.
I just think whenever it comes to these questions, having a class analysis helps answer a lot of what we're puzzled about, right? If you're doing well under establishment Democratic leadership, then you don't understand what the problem is. But that's the issue, that's the disconnect, right? People like Soledad O'Brien and Bill Maher aren't struggling with what the vast majority of American voters are struggling with. They don't know what it's like to be in this unstable economic situation, right? So for them, it's like, what are you guys complaining about? You should be concerned about some crazy lunatic who doesn't believe in our democratic process getting elected. We have to support the establishment Democrat at any and all costs. That's where they're coming from. Whereas for ordinary people who are struggling to put food on the table for their kids, or ordinary people who can't go back to work because they can't afford childcare, they're like, what are you talking about? Things are effed up under Democratic leadership as well. You get what I'm saying?
100%, and they just don't see it.
They don't see it because they're living in a different world.
Yeah, look, it's not to pick on Soledad at all. I mean, you haven't mentioned her in the tweet. I mean, look at Poppy Harlow yesterday in that clip with Don Lemon, the part of what got Don Lemon fired. He's fighting back against Vivek Ramaswamy and doing a really good job of correcting him on literal lies that he told. And Poppy Harlow's like looks disgusted. She's like, like this.
I think.
Nah, she was awful. And then she's checking her phone like, oh my God, I'm not with him. He's challenging a guest. I would never challenge a guest.
Is that on her phone?
Yeah, no. They're all the worst.
Yeah.
All right, we gotta go. We're good. All right, back on TYT, Jang, Anna, and look at this Chef Rockstar gifted 10 Young Turks memberships on YouTube. Thank you, we really appreciate it. Casper's got more news.
All right, well, this story is quite a doozy. The Sackler family, meaning the family behind the largest opioid scandal, has funneled tens of millions of dollars to a non-governmental organization that actually advises both the White House and Congress on drug-related policy. And the institution has failed to disclose this very clear conflict of interest. Now, the piece reported by the New York Times is an explosive one, an incredibly important one that shows how these governmental and non-governmental organizations take money from certain special interests that then leads to the publication of studies that misinforms the policymakers at hand. And that is exactly what happened here with what the Sacklers did, according to the reporting from the New York Times. So I'm gonna read some of the relevant excerpts, but it's really important that you guys actually read the piece for yourselves. There's so many tidbits in there that we just don't have time to get into. But here is the gist of the story. According to Christina Jewett at the Times, the national academies have kept quiet about their decision to accept roughly $19 million in donations from members of the Sackler family, the owners of Purdue Pharma, the maker of the drug OxyContin, and it's notorious for fueling the opioid epidemic. So $19 million is no joke, and the donations to the national academies began in the year 2000. By the time we hit 2017, they had already donated millions of dollars. So a $14 million donation was actually made in 2008 by Dr. Raymond Sackler and his wife Beverly Sackler. They did this through their foundation, and the National Academies continues to advise the government on drug policy, including painkillers. So unlike the World Health Organization, the Times writes, which was accused of being manipulated by Purdue and later retracted two opioid policy reports, the National Academies has not conducted a public review to determine if the Sackler donations influenced its policymaking, despite issuing two major reports that influenced national opioid policy. And by the way, we're gonna get into one of these reports, which was just rife with misinformation, unfortunately misinformed policymakers and led to additional prescriptions of these painkillers. One of those reports released in 2011 and now largely discredited claimed that 100 million Americans suffered from chronic pain, an estimate that proved to be highly inflated. I'm gonna get to the details on that report in just a moment, but understand how this works. Sackler family provides massive donations to the National Academies. The National Academies then puts out reports indicating that far more Americans are struggling with pain-related issues, chronic pain, than is actually happening in reality. And that report leads policymakers to agree to increasing or allowing for the increase of opioid-related prescriptions. And as we know, opioid deaths in this country skyrocketed. Addiction to opioids and then later heroin skyrocketed. I mean, we're still grappling with this epidemic as we speak, and the details are just so incredibly damning. Before we get to it, Cenk, what are your thoughts so far?
Yeah, so the bottom line is actually really easy to understand. They give tens of millions of dollars to this organization, and then this organization puts out a paper saying that 100 million, 42% of the country is in chronic pain. That's an absurd number. No doctor believes that number. That's preposterous. They should have laughed them out of the room instantly and questioned, hey, where's your funding coming from? Because that number makes no sense at all. And it turns out it's not just Purdue. One of the guys who wrote the report had his own company that was in the pain medication business. It's like the most biased report you could imagine. And the real number, by the way, according to doctors, is 7 to 21%. So I believe 7% makes sense in that ballpark. I'll trust the real doctors, right? But guys, this is how they buy off every part of our government, even the non-governmental organizations that then inform government decisions. And so they buy everything because as long as the government allows them to sell heroin, they're gonna make so much money. By the way, government websites literally say that OxyContin and heroin are in the same category of drugs. And that's of course why people got hooked on it.
Of course,
and then they went to heroin afterwards because it was cheaper.
It's cheaper, and it was after the government realized that there was an opioid epidemic, so they started to restrict the prescription of the drug. But at that point, so many Americans were hooked that they ended up turning to the black market for heroin, which yes, was also cheaper and easier to obtain. Now, I wanted to give you those specific details. So Cenk mentioned panelists within the national academies who had their own organizations. So Dr. Richard Payne is a perfect example. He's with the American Pain Society Physicians Group. That group took $900,000 from the Sackler family. Another example, another panelist with the National Academies was Myra Christopher. And Myra Christopher was actually swapping emails back in 2007 with Purdue staff about talking points to respond to news broadcasts that were critical of opioids. So at the time of that 2011 report that significantly overestimated how many Americans were dealing with chronic pain. Christopher was the president of the Center for Practical Bioethics, which was a nonprofit based in Kansas City, Missouri. Purdue gave that organization $934,770, okay? So let's get to the 2011 report and how that came to fruition, because Purdue Pharma, or a representative, I should say, for the National Academies claims this money that we took from the Sackler family had nothing to do with our decisions, okay? So Megan Lowry is her name, a spokeswoman for the National Academies, said in a statement that the Sackler donations were never used to support any advisory activities on the use of opioids or on efforts to counter the opioid crisis. However, take a look at this timeline of events and you can decide for yourselves. By the way, I think that these types of donations should be completely outlawed. The National Academies receive 70% of its funding from the federal government. They should not be allowed to take additional funding from, families that own pharmaceutical companies and have, a financial interest in being drug pushers. But nonetheless, the Pain Care Forum, which is a group co-founded by Bert Rosen, the Purdue lobbyist, pushed for legislation introduced in 2007 and 2009 that included calling for a National Academies report to increase the recognition of pain as a significant public health problem. Now, soon after the measure passed in 2010, Rosen convened the Pain Care Forum at a 10 p.m., meaning 10 o'clock at night gathering to focus on meetings with the Institute of Medicine, the former name for the National Academy of Medicine, and for membership on IOM committee, meaning the Institute of Medicine committee. At the same time, the National Academies was forming the committee that would produce its 2011 opioids report, which included the estimate that about 100 million, or 42% of American adults, were in pain, a figure that researchers later found to be significantly inflated. And I should note, in reference to what Cenk mentioned earlier, later the CDC did its own study into this, and they're like, no, not 41%. The number is actually closer to 7 to 21%.
Yeah. So look, this is so absurd because that Dr. Payne that Anna mentioned is a perfect example. First of all, let's note how funny it is that his name is Dr. Payne.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, it's Payne, but it is pronounced Payne, and he does work at the Pain Center, but that's PAIN, as in the actual pain. Okay, so he's getting money. His organizations are getting money from both sides, right? You've got the organization we're talking about here, then you've got his Pain Institute, et cetera, and they're shoveling money towards this guy. And lo and behold, he says, "Wow. Pain is a giant problem in America that could probably be fixed by this exact drug." Okay, and Is it addicting? Well, I wouldn't worry about that. In another study that that the Sacklers paid for, they concluded that people weren't really getting addicted to Oxy. It was, quote, a pseudo addiction.
Right.
Okay. So, but unfortunately, because mainstream media in this country has said that corporations giving money to politicians and government officials is perfectly normal and acceptable, and that we shouldn't be concerned about it, everybody does it in such brazen ways. So now, after all those people died, now hundreds of thousands of people over all those years, now the New York Times writes a good story about, hey, maybe they shouldn't have taken the money a decade ago and maybe we should have been more vigilant, etc. I appreciate the story and it's a good piece of journalism.
It is, it's an excellent piece, yes.
Yeah, and from time to time, like we tell you all the time, the New York Times and other mainstream media, especially print outlets, do really good investigative pieces, right? But they'll forget about it. And tomorrow they'll be telling you that when Ted Cruz or Nancy Pelosi takes tens of millions of dollars from another drug company, that no, it doesn't affect them at all.
Well, it's interesting because they seem to report stories like this as if it's in a vacuum, when this type of corruption has really been indicative of our political system. It's now ingrained, baked into our political system. Every facet of our political system, whether we're talking about Congress, whether we're talking about the FDA, whether we're talking about, in this case, non-governmental organizations that advise on drug policy. And so the other point, the final point that I want to make about this is, oftentimes you will hear from Democratic politicians repeat that we believe in science. Science, science, science. We believe in science. But we also know that with the corruption that is allowed into these scientific studies. I mean, you have the Koch brothers who funded all sorts of nonsense junk science that minimized the impact of the climate emergency. They would fund entire science departments on university campuses to essentially sway the research that those campuses were doing on climate change. I give you that example in addition to this example to say that the science can be manipulated when corruption is introduced into the process. And that is what we're seeing here. And it's a scary world to live in when you don't know what to trust.
100%. And look, guys, there's good people that work at that organization. There's good doctors, scientists, etc. And in fact, when a couple of the preeminent scientists on the governing council of the organization found out that they had taken money from the Sacklers before writing that report, they had no idea, even though they were on the governing council. And that's part of how media and political figures, etc. They all are so hush hush about the corruption and normalize it so much that even some people in their own organizations don't realize they're doing it. And when they found out, they were super pissed. So then they ask, hey, is there any way that we can pull that report back, right? And one of the people that are leading the organization says the classic Obama line, we don't look backwards, we look forwards.
It's so pathetic.
Yeah, well, that's if you committed crimes in the past, that's why you don't look backwards. Obama did that on behalf of George Bush and Dick Cheney. And in this case, they're doing it on their own behalf. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's had been a perfectly good organization for a long time and can be, but Anna's right. The minute you start taking that corporate money, it's good night, Irene. And by the way, I would argue the same thing happened to NPR. The minute they started taking the corporate money, all of a sudden all the progressives are bad, corporate status quo is awesome, etc. And then now corruption has become so standard that it's no longer the exception, it's the rule.
Yeah.
So that's why it's like when we criticize reporters, they feel like the fish that is being asked, how's the water? They're like, what water? Because they swim in corruption so much, they don't even see it anymore. I mean, look, these guys selling, in essence, heroin in suits is basically like the Mexican drug cartels coming in and going, hey, National Academy of Medicine, etc. Why don't I give you guys $19 million and then you write a report about how great the drug cartels are?
Yeah, listen, the Sackler family should be in prison. They should be in prison. How many Americans died because of their drug pushing? And there's no conversation about that. Obviously, they're going bankrupt, they're paying fines. I think drug traffickers should be in prison. These are drug traffickers. Finally, the same spokesperson from the National Academies, Megan Lowry, was asked like, all right, well now that this is an issue, right? Conflict of interest, what are you guys gonna do about it? Lowry added that the organization had been prevented from returning the Sackler money because of legal restrictions and donor unwillingness to accept returned funds.
That's such a BS excuse.
It totally is.
Of course, look, you could do what other organizations like Tufts University have done, which is redirect the money to prevention and treatment of people who are addicted to these awful drugs that you had a huge hand in pushing forward. But the number one thing to take away from this story is as always, when the media tells you that the corporate money doesn't corrupt the politicians, the government officials, and the non-government organizations that they give money to, it is absurd. The whole point of that money is to corrupt, and it works almost every time.
When we come back for the second hour of the show, we're gonna talk about the injustice around the Breonna Taylor story. But if you thought that that was a story of injustice, wait till you hear the updates involving the officer who shot the bullet that killed her. We've got an update on that and more. Don't miss it. We'll be right back.
You know what the progressive movement needs? It needs a little energy, a little pizzazz, maybe a little caffeine. Oh, coffee. But what if it was too strong coffee? Yes, new, twostrongcoffee.com/TYT. Look, this helps progressive causes. It's also organic and fair trade, so you've got peace of mind that it was done right, and it happens to taste great. So check it out right now at twostrongcoffee.com/TYT.
300 million is a pretty good number, Well, that's the size of the US population. You know what our next target is? The size of the entire world. We just crossed 5 billion views on YouTube.
I mean, imagine 10 years ago thinking one day.
We looked at you like, are you nuts? Young Turks has just passed another milestone, 20 billion views. Damn. All right, lots of comments. You guys are the best.
I'm gonna read a few comments from our members.
Mr. Methuselah says on YouTube, super chat, thanks for all the important work you do for TYT for the movement.
Do you know who had the first super chat when I got back from vacation? You won't be surprised to find out. Billy B. Taylor. What do you know? Billy says, rejoice, for Dragon Daddy has returned.
This question sent to us by Izzy Sanchez Jr. Is it me or is Meghan McCain talking as fast as Ben Shapiro? Is that the way the right tries to look smart and intellectual? Well, yes.
Michael Nathan writes it on Twitter. Did Anna choose Cenk's outfit today? I'm sure it wasn't Cenk himself. Man Bun Jenkins Skinny Jeans says, so now Anna has pointed out, okay, that's his handle.
T. Joyce 1971 saying Donald Trump is good at pulling out of things, NAFTA, the Iran deal, NATO. It's just too bad Fred Trump didn't.
All right, let me do a little quick plug here. It's not even a plug, I'm bragging, okay? I'm bragging, watch me. We have a channel on YouTube, a whole channel devoted just to the Young Turks. It's badass, right?
Wow, man.
I can see the voice.
You guys are rock stars.
Unbelievable, Senator Sanders. Welcome to Rebel Headquarters. Man, you guys are amazing. We gave you what you wanted. Okay. Speaking of shirts.
I have a surprise.
You reached a lot of people. You are the Young Turks. And we have spread that progressive message wide and far. Let's keep it going.
Here's what we do. We go beyond the headline. We are willing to engage in transparent conversations with those who do not think like me. We also make sure that you know what's happening not only nationally, but in your local area. Make sure you tune in to Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, Monday through Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time.
Cool news, shoptyt.com now has books. There's a whole bunch of books there. You're gonna be shocked to find out that they're largely progressive. Of course! Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People, is there. It's a fantastic story from Jesse Jackson to Bernie Sanders to AOC that explains the progressive movement probably better than any book I've ever read. Speaking of awesome books, my dad's got a book out called The Original Young Turk, where he goes from the poorest olive farmer you ever met in your life to living the American dream. Back on TYT, Jank, Anna, Stampy, Sterling Nash, Blurred, Jack Moore. Look at all these American heroes who just joined. They hit the join button below the video on YouTube. They know that. You guys know it's tyt.com/join. Come and do honest reporting with us. Every one of our members does this show with us, and I love it. All right, Casper.
Let's get right to our next story. Let me just warn you, it's not a good one. Protesters gathered outside of the Carroll County Courthouse in Carrollton, Kentucky to speak out against the hiring of the cop who shot and killed Breonna Taylor in Kentucky in 2020. He has been hired as a deputy by another police department in the same state. Now, Miles Cosgrove is the cop in question. He was hired as a sheriff's deputy by the Carroll County Sheriff's Department. Carroll County Chief Deputy Sheriff said this about the new hire, quote, "We think he will help," I can't even believe he said this, "reduce the flow of drugs in our area and reduce property crimes. We felt like he was a good candidate to help us in our county." Now, this comes despite Cosgrove being one of the 3 Louisville officers who shot at Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, during a no-knock warrant. Breonna Taylor was sleeping in her room when the no-knock warrant took place. Now, think about this. You have cops just with no warning busting into your home. At that point, Walker thought that they were intruders. He had a gun of his own and thought he was protecting himself, defending himself when he shot his gun. And then that gave these cops the idea that it's totally okay to indiscriminately start shooting into the apartment. At that point, Breonna Taylor, who had been resting, got shot and killed. She died in the hallway of her own apartment. So Cosgrove had fired 16 of those shots, including the one that killed Breonna Taylor. But Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron did not charge Cosgrove, saying that he was justified in the shooting because of Taylor's boyfriend firing his weapon first.
Yeah, so look, I have to confess that I'm not at all surprised by this. We did the story last week of the Oklahoma sheriff and the council member, et cetera, talking about the good old days when they used to be able to lynch black guys. And they've been asked to resign. And as far as I know, still have not resigned. No one has fired them for being pro-lynchings. So in this case, people are particularly outraged because it was the wrong house. She was in her own house, sleeping, and obviously perfectly innocent, and it's a woman. So that all those factors combine to make this an outrageous case. But when you look at it from a cop's perspective, cop gets fired at, shoots 16 bullets indiscriminately. By the way, he went through the wall, almost hit a baby in another apartment, okay? But to a cop, that seems super normal. I mean, I got shot at and I'm not gonna spray the place, I'm gonna spray the place. And look, there's one thing about the cops, just to be perfectly fair. They didn't know it was the wrong house. They thought it was the right house. The guy who got the warrant was not there, right? The warrant was wrong. So they go in, they get shot at. He sprays the place, nearly kills a baby, kills Breonna Taylor, right? So he should not work as a cop again because you can't indiscriminately fire like that. But at the same time, fellow cops are going to look at that and go, "Oh, you got shot at and then shot back." They can't wait to hire that guy. So look, guys, when you go to do hiring, and this sucks, but if there's a blemish on your record in any field, let alone policing, it makes it really hard to hire that person. Okay,
I mean, it's supposed to.
Yeah,
but not in policing.
But in the business world, and oftentimes it makes it unfairly hard to get another job, right? In policing, no way they're gonna hire that guy because there's gonna be. They went out of their way to hire that guy. They could have hired many other guys. And I guarantee you, the guy who hired him was like, "You got shot at, brother. Forget that. I'm hiring you, okay, to shoot back." So that's a very active, conscious decision. And so understand that if you're in that county, the guy who makes decisions in that county is telling you, "I don't have a lot of regard for your life."
No, 100%, Cenk, right? Look, this adds insult to injury because Cosgrove didn't face the criminal consequences for what he did, right? Which was bad enough. You know, you have the Attorney General, Daniel Cameron, refusing to press charges, so that's point number one. But then to add insult to injury, hiring this guy after the fact communicates to the people in this town, we don't actually care about your safety. We don't hire based on whether the candidate we're hiring is interested in protecting and serving. An innocent woman was shot dead by police in her own home. She did nothing wrong, and there was no justice in that case. And again, to increase or extend that injustice, you now have a different police department in the same state hiring the cop who shot the bullet that ultimately killed Breonna Taylor. And it's just so wrong.
But it's so wrong. But the only reason we're talking about it is because it's such a well-known case. After Breonna
this happens all the time.
Yeah,
by the way.
After Breonna Taylor got killed, there were some protests, but mainly there was an expectation of protests in Kentucky. Cops were out in full force just a little while after the shooting, and since there was a lot of people gathered, there's a local guy who sells barbecue in the area, and he set up a little shop and he was selling barbecue. Everybody loves the guy, right? Cops fired into the crowd to disperse the crowd, killed him. Now, to me, that's at least as egregious.
Yep.
But that nobody's tracking that cop. Nobody's gonna get punished. They're all gonna get rehired. For cops, this is pretty standard operating procedure. It's just about it in the Breonna Taylor case because it's made so much news. But this is fairly standard, unfortunately, for police departments across the country.
And this is why people don't trust policing, right? I think that we need serious and deep reforms of our policing in America. And we're not doing that. We're not doing that at all. We're doing the opposite. We're continuing the failed, disastrous practices that have led to the distrust and have been the antithesis of keeping people safe.
Yeah, look, guys, it's last thing here. Of course, there's the extremes, always the extremes.
Yes.
The right wing says, no, cops are awesome, thin blue line, we support them.
No consequences ever.
Like, as long as they're not arresting Republicans like Donald Trump, then we love them and let them beat the crap out of people. And I don't want to hear, I think every black person in the country is lying about police abuse, outrageous things. And then the left comes in and goes, just defund the police entirely. Why? Why would we do these insane extremes? Why don't we do what the great majority of the American people want, which is reform the police, massive reform, not a little reform. But guys, here, I'll give you a quick example. There's all of those rape test kits that are out there that are untested. I think they're in the millions, right? Why don't you do policing? Why are you going around doing stop and frisk that targets minorities almost exclusively? 96% of the people that are stopped are black or Latino, not based on whether they're criminals, but they're stopped based on race. Giant waste of time, does not keep anyone safe. Instead, take it and test it to rape kits, do policing, solve cases. They almost never solve any cases. So what we need is actual policing. We don't need no police, and we don't need weird thugs that think that they're the biggest gangs in America and are above the law. We need actual police to protect the community. It's not a wild ask, it's not a crazy ask, it's the most basic ask of all time. And we just can't get anything in this country that the American people actually want.
When we come back from the break, we're gonna switch gears entirely and talk about this ever-growing drama between Steven Crowder and Candace Owens. It is getting incredibly ugly, and I enjoy it. So we've got that story and more coming up. Don't miss it.
TYT. So first of all, guys, don't forget our podcasting network. Is it the best podcasting network in America? I mean, I guess. Okay. And don't forget our newsletter as well. There's a lot of things not to forget. TYT.com/newsletter. That's a clever URL for it. You'll never guess it. Or if you're having trouble remembering TYT.com/newsletter, boom, scan that QR code and you'll get the progress report every morning. And I think you guys will love it. Okay, now we go to members. Start at the beginning of the show. Steppenwolf says, Trump's only accurate calculation during his presidency, referring to the 11,780 votes that he wanted out of Georgia. That's funny. Gabby Marita said, the only reason this Georgia case is possible is because Trump's perfect call was recorded. How many other perfect calls did he attempt to officials in other states who didn't have the wherewithal to record it? You know, Gabby, as usual, make a great point, because if they all had him on tape asking for the exact number of votes that he lost by in every state, it would be even more compelling. But the good news is they really couldn't, I don't know that they would even be admissible. Remember, they have to try them state by state. So in Georgia, they've got perfect evidence for this crime, but we'll see. We'll see if the powerful are above the law or not. Mo Furry says, Trump did say, which is one more than we have, that is literally trying to flip a vote. Yeah, that's why look, there's an argument to be made that prosecutors can just play the tape of Trump calling the Georgia officials and asking for exactly one more vote than he needs, and then say, ladies and gentlemen, we rest our case. That could be good enough to convict. So you guys are all right about that. Here's another thing you guys are right about. Cerebus Dragon says, I love it when Anna wears that dress. She's like walking springtime.
I love the spring. If you follow me on Instagram, apologies for the endless photos of flowers that I post on my story, but how could I not? It's the best time of the year. I'm super happy.
God bless.
Yeah.
The Throat Goat Dragon says, finish the job about Biden and what he said in his ad. Bro, when did you plan to start? Okay, people in DC would be outraged by that comment. Best president we've the most accomplished president we've ever had. Get out of here. Cheesecake Brownie says, like I said on John's show, no one danced in the streets because Biden won. They were dancing because Trump lost.
That's right.
100% right. They also added, if DeSantis is such a loser, why did Trump back him? What does that say about Trump? Also correct. That idiot known as Dimwitty wrote in, that's their handle. Trump versus Biden is like watching your father and your father-in-law wrestle bare-chested at your eldest daughter's wedding reception. That is such a hilariously specific analogy, and I love it, okay? I like it so much. $100 Blue Apron gift card. Email at rewards@tyt.com. TYT, Cenk, and Anna with you guys, and some American heroes as well. Darth Hollister gifted 6 subs on Twitch. Agnostic Sister gifted 1. Metal Turtle 571 gifted 6. Someone from Flint gifted 1, and Ruggedly Handsome gifted 5. And Desperado said, "Whoa, what a lovely dress, Anna."
Thank you. Jeez, I didn't expect to get all this love for my dress today.
No, people are going crazy about the dress. They've lost their minds. It's over.
It's from Reformation, one of my favorite brands. So check them out.
All right, that's fun for everybody. And guys, on Twitch as well as on YouTube, thanks for really sticking out for one another and buying the memberships for others. You guys are awesome. Casper.
Get ready for this story. Let's do it.
Since 2021, I've been living through what has increasingly been a horrendous divorce. So if you're familiar with the idea of extortion, then you know the feeling well. Now, some of these threats were so thinly veiled that I'm frankly surprised you didn't all guess immediately.
Stephen has a lot going on.
Steven Crowder is now accusing Candace Owens of extortion. And Candace Owens has absolutely flipped out over those accusations, which we will get to in just a moment. But first, let's catch you up in case you missed some of this ongoing drama, which seems to be increasing even more. So it all started when Crowder put out a video claiming that he was given a contract offer from the Daily Wire that would essentially make him a slave. It was absolutely ridiculous and pathetic. But for those of you who missed it, here's a snippet of that video.
Many other people knew about this behind the scenes. Some, not all, but some of them in positions of power, influence, leverage, knew of this. They also knew that the safety of my children included keeping it private. So if you're familiar with the idea of extortion, then you know the feeling well. Now, some of these threats were so thinly veiled that I'm frankly surprised you didn't all guess immediately.
Stephen has a lot going on, I guess is the best way to say it. He has a lot going on, and that should be clear because people don't do stuff like this if there's not a lot going on in their lives. I would like to implore my audience and everybody that isn't paying attention to the situation not to condemn him, but to pray for him. You know, maybe if I feel in further defense, some things should be said, or maybe if I feel that the public has a right to understand certain circumstances.
And I will continue to do whatever is necessary to protect my children. Discussing the divorce any further on social media or on this show or in any public space is not what's best for them. I'll be handling this through the proper legal avenues and channels available as a matter of record in which I have more than full confidence. So I'd ask that you understand the need for and respect our privacy in what is obviously a pretty tough time.
So apologies, that was the video that Crowder put out today. We just gave you more context. But to go back really quickly and refresh you on what happened in the lead up to this whole drama. In his video, Steven Crowder had insisted that this is a slave contract, the one that was offered to him by the Daily Wire, to the tune, by the way, of $50 million over 4 years. Okay, so he felt that that contract was a slave contract because first of all, it wasn't even a contract. Okay, what the Daily Wire had sent him, I forget what the exact wording is, but it's like the first offer in a negotiation, and in that offer, there were some elements that indicated that if Steven Crowder's content gets demonetized, which would mean that the Daily Wire would take a hit because of his content being demonetized, well then Steven Crowder would be penalized for that. Because of that penalty, that potential penalty, if he would get demonetized, Crowder thought that it was a slave contract. Then other Daily Wire people got involved, including Candace Owens. They went back and forth, and Candace Owens, in her video response to Crowder at the time, hinted that Crowder has something going on. He's hiding something from the public. She kind of threatened to out him on that. And you can speculate as to what he's trying to hide. But in this latest video that he put out today, he is making it appear as though it just has to do with this divorce that he is now going through with his wife. So, Cenk, what are your thoughts?
I can't wait to adjudicate. All right, so first off, love this right-wing food fight. So, hey, look, it's not just the left that rips each other apart. Okay, great. I'm happy to see the right wing doing it. So who's at fault? So, well, they're both at fault. They're right wingers. They're both going to do terribly dirty things, right? So, and they did. So Crowder started the whole fight by saying that a perfectly great $50 million contract was horrible. He recorded the calls secretly. These were supposed to be his friends and allies. Right. And then he leaked the call. He didn't leak the calls, he just played the calls. He's calling them slave masters when they were offering him a $50 million. He was 100% wrong in that context, right? And you know me, I'm not gonna defend the Daily Wire or Candace Owens for sure. So then Candace Owens comes in, and of course she's dirty, so she insinuates that I thought she was insinuating that he cheated on his wife. Because, he was supposed to be a good Christian. You might find out that he wasn't such a good Christian.
That's what you thought she was referring to?
Yeah.
I thought she was trying to, look, we've talked about this before, but Steven Crowder seems to have an affinity for cross-dressing, which I don't have a problem with whatsoever. But he seems to like it a lot, and he's a conservative who, has the so-called conservative values that's against transgender people, drag queens. You get what I'm saying?
I do, and okay, so it could be that, but there's no question that Candace Owens was insinuating something bad,
something nefarious,
right?
Yeah.
And now, if he's an actual cross-dresser, we don't think that's bad, but they do, right? And so Candace definitely took a massive shot back at Crowder for sure. Then, but was it extortion? No, she didn't say unless you do X, Y, or Z, I'm going to go to the police or I'm going to do this or that. No, people throw around this word extortion, and they're not at all careful with it. So I think it's totally BS that it was.
Unless there's something
behind the
yet.
scenes.
Exactly, there could be some communication behind the scenes that we're not privy to yet. We'll see how this develops. But I do want to go to Candace Owens and her, insane reaction to all of this. She doesn't take well to being accused of anything. But I also want to remind you that when Jesse Singal, a journalist, reached out to her for comment on a story that he was working on, she immediately responded by accusing him of engaging in misconduct that makes women uncomfortable without providing a shred of evidence. We had talked about that on the show before.
Yeah,
remember?
They're both supernova toxic, right? The minute you touch them, they turn on you and say the most toxic sludge you could ever imagine. Yes. And the thing is, they're both so dirty that you would believe anything about them, except when it comes from the other person, because they're all massive liars.
So when that video of Steven Crowder was posted on Twitter by an account that goes by Anomaly, Candace Owens responded to it with fully Looney Tunes. I would end it there, but she, of course, couldn't help herself, so she continued. Steven Crowder accusing me of extortion is so patently insane that it honestly makes me question how there are still people who cannot see how thoroughly undone he has become. This is not stable behavior. He is a man on a spiral, outright bizarre and concerning. If you are going to use your children as human shields to block people from digging further into your divorce, please do so without inserting me into the narrative.
Oh, shut up, Candace. You're the one who inserted yourself.
Yeah,
you did a video going, I wonder what's going on with Crowder.
Yeah. Okay, so let me just say, I think that the Daily Wire's response to Crowder was pretty good. I think they handled it well until Candace got involved.
Yeah, of course.
Candace took it, because the Daily Wire had the high ground. They offered the guy $50 million and Crowder was treating it as if it was a slave contract. Everyone was on their side. And then you have Candace Owens come out, and honestly, she had an interview on Tim Pool's show. And my read of it, I could be wrong. This is just my perspective. My read of it is, based on what she said, that she was hinting that Steven Crowder is either bisexual or gay.
Okay, I don't know and I don't care, right?
Yeah.
But Crowder says in the beginning of the video that there was no infidelity in the divorce. Now I want to get to his video, right? Because there's two parts of it that I thought were totally absurd. So first of all, he's going through a divorce. My heart goes out to him. My heart goes out to his kids. That's normal. It happens all the time. And in as much as these politics is so goddamn dirty, I wish people would leave people's families out of it, and we certainly do, okay? But he went over the top and he said, look, you should respect my kids' privacy. Absolutely, right?
And who's talking about your children? No one's talking about your children.
No, that's the one part Candace is right about. He is using the kids as a shield. Because if you leave it at privacy, then everybody agrees, right? But he said over and over again in the video, and my kids' safety. Wait, I know it's not leftist. There's no leftists who are threatening Steven Crowder's kids. That doesn't make any sense, right? And I've never heard of that. There's no such thing. So are other right-wingers threatening to harm your kids? Because that would be a hell of a story. Like, do you have anybody, Candace Owens or otherwise, who said, I'm gonna hurt your kids? That would be a massive story. My guess is you're lying and you're making it up. No one threatened to harm your kids. That's my guess. And if they did, by the way, and they're a leftist, I'll go attack them for you, okay? So that is unacceptable. But I think you're a total liar. Okay, so now the next thing is, and this is the super bizarre part. He kept saying, like, in Texas, my wife wanted to divorce me, and in Texas, she's just allowed to.
Actually, I have to go to that video right now.
Yeah.
So we're gonna skip ahead because it is shocking that he said this out loud.
It's unbelievable.
So let's go to this part of his lengthy video about the divorce.
There is no infidelity, any kind of physical abuse at all on either side. And no, this was not my choice. My then wife decided that she didn't want to be married anymore. And in the state of Texas, that is completely permitted. And I still believe that children need a mom and a dad and that divorce is horrible. But in today's legal system, my beliefs don't matter. In Texas, divorce is permitted when one party wants it, period. I loved a woman so much that I married her. A woman who, despite all of this, I still love as the mother of my children. And she wanted something else for her life. That's not my choice. She simply wanted out, and the law says that that's how it works. Now, of course, look, I get it. There are multiple sides to every story, but one thing that is undeniable in this case is that it's no one's fault but my own in that I picked wrong, and that's certainly not the fault of my children.
Super creepy, yeah. If one party no longer wants to be married, they can file for divorce. That is how the system, in my opinion, should work. You shouldn't be held captive in a marriage that makes you miserable and unhappy. So, I just
of course it's not your kid's fault. Who the hell is saying it's your kid's fault? Okay, but to the main point, what did you want to have her? Did you want to kidnap her and make sure she couldn't leave the marriage? That's super weird.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, like if she wants to leave, you have to let her leave, right? Like, what's the alternative? Do we tie her up in your house? Do you not let someone get divorced when they say, I don't want to be with this person anymore? They can't get divorced. That's the alternative. They can't get divorced, and they must listen to be their husband's captive or something. No, we don't agree to that at all. That's crazy talk. Guys, look, Crowder, there's nothing wrong with a divorce. Like they're all, and throughout the video, he's acting like it's like a national tragedy. So you got divorced along with like 50% of other Americans. So what? It's not that, look, it happens. It's like we're not the ones blaming you for it. I don't get it. Like, why are you so, like you're personally torn up about your divorce. That makes sense, right? But he's treating it like he committed a crime. Brother, divorce is a divorce. You didn't do anything wrong. Like, I don't know why all the drama. So my point, Anna, is I can't tell if all of this nonsense drama is over a simple divorce that no one objects to, right? Or is he still hiding something and he's pretending it's the divorce?
I don't know. That might be the case. I have no idea. I will say, this is a legitimate question that isn't just about Steven Crowder, but as public figures, do we have like a responsibility or obligation to share elements of our personal lives with our audience? Like if I'm going through something with my husband, I'm not reporting it to you guys, ever.
No, but to be fair to Crowder in this case, Candace Owens is the one that brought it up.
Sure,
right?
okay.
Then you're forced to respond. You know how that works, right? Like people attack us all the time and then you're forced to respond. Then when you respond, people are like, how dare you respond? You're like, what am I supposed to do, right?
Yeah,
but in this case, Crowder, remember, started everything.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I mean, Candace going after someone that she doesn't like, someone that she doesn't agree with, going after their personal lives is particularly disgusting. Nonetheless, she did talk about this on her show. Final video, final element to this, for now at least. Let's hear what she had to say.
I then went onto my platform and I said, pray for Steven Crowder, honestly, because that's what he needs. He needs a prayer. And apparently nobody's answering those prayers right now because he's still acting erratic. He's now upping the ante and suggesting that I extorted him. I will not take that lightly, okay? I am not Hillary Crowder. I am not anybody in his family. I am not going to take somebody going onto his platform and alleging that I either harassed, threatened, or did anything that would put his children at risk. That is very serious stuff that he is saying. And so what I did this morning after this clip was sent to me is I contacted a defamation lawyer and I am sending Steven Crowder a cease and desist. And I'm going to demand a full-throated retraction to the idea that Candace Owens threatened him or extorted him.
She wants a full-throated retraction.
Yeah, I mean, look, what I can't stand about this drama is both of them pretending that they're so innocent.
Right.
Like, as if Candace Owens just got attacked for no reason. She's just minding her business and then Crowder comes and attacks. No, you're the one who insinuated terrible things about him without saying it. You know what you did. Now, I don't think it's extortion, right? But really, you're gonna sue him for defamation?
Yeah.
Come on. I mean, and the degree to which Candace Owens has defamed other people, and now she's catching feelings because somebody criticized her.
It's pretty incredible.
No, the both of them are like, oh, golly gee, I'm so innocent. When one of them is like, oh, I'll show you what I secretly recorded with my friends, and I will call them, slave owners. Rah! And the other one's like, oh, I bet he's gay or cheating on his wife or something, right? And then they were like, oh my God, I'm so innocent. How did I get stuck in this?
And what set Candace Owens off was Crowder's fans like constantly asking her if she's locked into a slave contract, right? And it's like she caught feelings over that. It's like, listen, people are gonna try to stir the pot no matter what. Like she doesn't have it in her to just ignore that, right?
No, they're
so
gonna rip each other
she
to
gives
shreds.
into and takes the bait from people trying to stir the pot. So that's what kind of sparked the feud, and it's gonna keep going, I guess.
Yeah, look, here's the moral of the story. First of all, if you're in media or politics at all, be careful. It's a nest of vipers, okay?
1000%.
Second of all, if you're on the right-wing side, they're legendarily vipers. They will betray you for the slightest profit, and it doesn't go against their principles. When the left tears each other down, it goes against their stated principles of working together, helping someone they don't know, et cetera, and it's more hypocritical. When the right does it, it's not even hypocritical. They're like, we're the bad guys. If you trust us, you're idiots. So right-wing pundits stabbing each other in the back is Tuesday. And so now we're seeing it in spectacular fashion here. So who's right, who's wrong? As usual with these two, they're both wrong.
Yeah, I agree. All right, when we come back, we have some more reactions to Tucker Carlson's firing, including reactions from Donald Trump and Brian Kilmeade. Don't miss it, we'll be right back.
All right, back on TYT during the social break here. Let's go to YouTube members. Shindig says, has anyone got a link to Anna's viral video of voting? Is it the Webbies? I can't locate it. It's super easy. TYT.com/vote, and that'll bring you to the link where you can vote on Anna's video. Okay, so tyt.com/vote. Thank you for asking. Little Tunechi Mohamed writes in, he's hurt but hard to feel for him when he constantly spews hate towards others. That's exactly how I felt. I mean, you look at him doing that video, he's hurt, dog. Don't ask him if he's all right, right? And I don't know what he's going through in his divorce, and it sounds terrible and painful, and normally my heart would go out to a guy like that, but he's hurt so many other people, not much heart left to give the dude, right? And so, but we're libs, so we can't help it, but feel some degree of empathy. I'm trying to get it out of my system though. Okay.
You know, like one other thing I'll just say, and it's true of the Steven Crowder context, and it's true of, I think it's more important when it comes to the left-wing context. There's always gonna be people who are gonna goad you, bait you, try to bait you into fighting with or trashing your allies, right? You don't have to do it. Like, you don't have to take the bait. You can just ignore it, right? So we get messages all the time. I personally get messages all the time of some other person in left-wing media saying something that offended them or hurt their feelings, blah, blah, blah. You should respond to it. No, I'm not gonna respond to it. I'm not gonna respond to it. We've got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah.
And I know that there's like a whole cottage industry of like drama videos where you're attacking your own side. But I'm not interested in that. Even if I disagree with other hosts and other shows in the left-wing space.
Yeah, I'll just say one quick thing about that. So there's all these folks online, et cetera, that demand that progressive hosts do X, Y, or Z. You take that to another show, okay? So people's demands are enormously uninteresting to me. So by the way, that also so they do it to our allies most of all, and they're all suckers, so they fall for it right away. This trick's been played 2,000 times, but every time, catfish like crazy.
And but it's super easy to pretend to be on the left when you're really a right winger looking to stir the pot too. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, of course. Whereas if you ask us, okay, will you condemn X, Y, or Z in progressive circles because of something they said? Our answer is no. No, we will not. Okay, so go take that BS somewhere else. But other people don't have that kind of courage, and it is what it is. Okay, so let's go to the reaction to Breonna Taylor's story. Austin Jackson says, "Oh my God, I'm gonna run out of time. Sorry, Austin, I can't get to yours. There's so many things here." All right, Michael Dante says, "Now that Tucker's left Fox News, my prediction is that Tucker goes back to Dancing with the Stars. LOL." It's about the only thing I had time for. Love you guys. We'll be right back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Also, Philly Dragon, Shindig Eats, Christina C, and Nerve 2005, all American heroes who just became Young Turks members by hitting the join button below the video on YouTube. We appreciate it, guys. We appreciate it every time. You guys are amazing. Casper.
A lot of reactions to Tucker getting fired from Fox News. Let's talk about it.
I don't know if it was voluntary or was somebody fired. But I think Tucker's been terrific. He's been, especially over the last year or so, he's been terrific to me.
It's really hard to understand how it is that Donald Trump is still so supportive toward Tucker Carlson after the revelations regarding how Tucker really feels about Trump. I mean, he did call Trump a demonic force and reveled in the idea that he might never have to talk to him again after Trump lost the 2020 election. Nonetheless, Trump seems pretty torn up over Tucker getting fired from Fox. Now, all of that, I guess, potential beef between Trump and Tucker is water under the bridge, no bad blood. Here's more of Trump essentially gushing about Tucker Carlson after his firing at Fox.
There's a lot of turmoil over there at Fox. I mean, $787 they just paid. Why would they get rid of a guy who's performing? Why would somebody do that to their business? Because they're losing money right now. Their stock has gone down.
Well, I was surprised that they made a settlement on that case. I thought that was a case that should easily be won. and they made a settlement. Look, you'll have to ask them. I'm not representing them at all by any means. But the Tucker situation, again, you don't know if it's a firing. Maybe he left because he wasn't being given his free reign. He wants free reign, maybe. But I was surprised by it.
Now, this interview with Greg Kelly is over at Newsmax, which, by the way, is facing its own defamation lawsuit by Dominion Voting Systems. Dominion's 2020 election lawsuit against Newsmax to move forward, judge rules. That's according to an ABC headline from June of 2022. So, Cenk, what do you make of this?
Yeah, so with first the easy answer, which is why does Trump do what he does here? So number one, Trump's kind of like a mob boss. And so he thinks, okay, you speak bad against me, I'm gonna come and kill, destroy you, right? But the minute you turn around and you publicly avow your allegiance to the boss, he's done with it, okay? And so Tucker said all those terrible things behind his back, by the way, half of which he probably didn't mind. A demonic force and a destroyer. He destroys everything in his path and he could easily destroy us. I bet Trump loved that part, right? And then, but when Tucker said, I hate him passionately, he didn't like that part. But when Tucker then comes and bows in front of him, remember Tucker just did the interview with him and bowed and said he's such a moderate, reasonable, sensible guy and that he loves him. Trump thinks, good, you kissed the ring, okay? Once you kiss the ring, all is forgiven, you're back in the fold, go out there and do propaganda for me, okay? So that's definitely what's going on with Trump. Now, there's a lot of dramas about Tucker's exit, and it turns out that Tucker had recalculated his timing as I had suspected. Remember I was saying he might wanna run again, he might wanna run in 24 and he's goading the Murdochs, etc. Well, but I said I think he got the timing wrong, and I talked about it on Old School last night because he didn't expect that Trump would be in this election. He doesn't want to take on Trump. He thinks Trump is tougher than he is, okay? He wanted to go after Trump, but now that Trump's definitely in this election, it turns out he was negotiating with Fox News to get a contract that ran through 2029, which to me says, if I'm right, he was planning on running in 28, not in 24. So Tucker apparently was actually blindsided by this firing. And there's a whole nother theory as to why. But for Trump, the minute you kiss the ass, he says nice things back to you. And it doesn't matter who you are and how terrible you are and what you've done in the past. Remember Kim Jong-un, communist dictator of North Korea, and had threatened Trump.
That's right.
And Trump had threatened him back, right?
Lindsey Graham's another example.
Exactly, Lindsey Graham had said terrible things about Trump. But the minute Kim Jong-un and Lindsey Graham and Tucker Carlson lined up on their knees, he's like, good boy, I bless you, you're all back in the fold now.
That's actually very true, and that's a good point. Now, there was an interesting exchange over at The Five. So why don't we take a look at that and see if we can make any sense of it.
You think that Susan Rice is going to take on Kamala Harris for the nomination?
I think there is a chance.
I'll watch it.
And then, so in 2024, it'll be Susan Rice versus Tucker Carlson.
Okay, up next, Bill Maher ripping into liberals.
Interesting reaction from Jeanine Pirro after Greg Gutfeld floated that possible ticket, I guess.
Yeah, in another Fox News segment, they literally said, we're not talking about Tucker. So the memo has gone out, do not talk about Tucker Carlson. So Hannity had like half a sentence.
Right.
Gutfeld does a little joke, and then Pirro's like, okay, we're going to break. Okay, she's in such a panic. She's like, Bill Maher.
Yep.
Right.
So there was also a moment where Brian Kilmeade, who was hosting the hour that Tucker would typically be on, he had to address what was going on, but he did so in the quickest and most cumbersome way imaginable. So let's watch that.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Fox News Tonight. I am Brian Kilmeade. As you probably have heard, Fox News and Tucker Carlson have agreed to part ways. I wish Tucker the best. I'm great friends with Tucker and always will be. But right now, it's time for Fox News Tonight, so let's get started.
Boom, real quick. Cenk, take notes. That's how you make a concise point.
Oh, look at this. Okay, we're not talking about that right now, okay? Let's talk about Bill Maher. So listen, that was super awkward and funny. And my problem is that when I see something, I can't unsee it, like Brian Kilmeade's half eyebrows.
Dude!
I did not realize it until now, and I can't unsee those.
I was thinking the same thing, but I'm like, typical vain Anna, focusing on stupid things like that. But no, like the makeup artist doing him real dirty. Because there's stuff that they can do.
And the eyebrows are like upside down V's. They're sharp. They go up.
Bad. They're bad, yeah.
But they don't go down.
You gotta fill them in, brother. You gotta fill them in.
Anyway, that's just nonsense. We're just kidding around.
Most important point made on the show so far.
Yeah, please. Okay, so, but okay, now back to the serious stuff. Get a load of this, drums. Vanity Fair reporting that Murdoch, super pissed at his ex-fiancée who was about to get married. She's a religious fundamentalist.
Right.
Had invited Tucker Carlson over for dinner in March. And the fiance really liked Tucker Carlson and they exchanged Bible stories back and forth. And apparently Murdoch hated it. And then he dumped the fiance a couple of days later.
I remember this.
Yeah.
Gabriel Sherman.
Yes.
He's got the hot goss. I
That's
remember
right.
this.
Okay, and he's reporting it. It's not us. It's Gabriel Sherman at Vanity Fair. Okay, and then so there's two parts of that story. One is that then when Tucker Carlson started spewing religious stuff at the Heritage Foundation event on Friday night, that apparently set off Rupert, and he's like, "That's it. I want him gone." Okay, and so I don't look, guys. You take it with a grain of salt. That's just one report, right, from inside sources at Fox News, etc. Right, and the second part of it is the full Logan Roy. They're putting out that Murdoch is kind of senile. And losing it, and he's having these temper tantrums, etc. But they can't say no to him. So when he goes off, right? And so I don't know if that's true either.
Right, there was
that's Vanity Fair again. Gabriel Sherman reporting.
So I should note there was another report indicating that the decision was made last Friday night by Suzanne Scott and Lachlan Murdoch, which is Rupert Murdoch's son.
So everybody's reporting that, including Gabriel. But what he's saying is, and again, he's saying it as, hey, these are what most sources are saying. I'm not saying it definitely happened, right? But then it was Rupert who told Lachlan and Suzanne Scott, get rid of him.
Got it, okay, that makes sense. Man, so I'm just curious to see what tricks he's got up his sleeve moving forward, right? Because I don't think this is gonna be the end of Tucker Carlson. There's no way he's gonna take a demotion and stay out of the public spotlight. He's gonna find a way to get back into the spotlight. I just don't know which avenue he's gonna take.
Now, here's more reporting. All of these things take with a grain of salt, especially because it just happened, and then a lot of things are out there, and then things settle down later, and you find out the real story. Anyways, apparently Fox is paying out his contract, and so that's $20 million a year for another couple of years. So that gives Tucker an incredible incentive to not strike back against Fox News, because you don't want to lose about $40 million.
Jesus Christ,
right?
Man.
So that's why right now you haven't heard anything from Tucker, and you might not hear any shots against Fox News until about a year and 8 months or so, and then Tucker might not unleash. He can go. It's potential that he can go get another job, start his own thing, etc. But as long as he's getting paid by Fox, I would be surprised if he lashed out at Fox, no matter how crazy the firing was. And by the way, let's not get it wrong. Tucker lies all the time on air. He should have been fired, but for other reasons, like for those reasons, as opposed to Murdoch didn't like how he talked to his fiancée.
Or Murdoch didn't like that his fiance seemed to have a bit of a crush on Tucker.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that they're even implying that, but he didn't like that they were both zany religious fundamentalists. Which is like the only positive thing I've ever heard about Murdoch, by the way.
Rupert Murdoch announced to his wife that he was divorcing her for this religious fundamentalist in an email. She found out through an email.
He's Logan Roy, man. I mean, Succession is based on him. And
insanity.
Yeah, and well, his only problem is he should have said earlier to them, "You are not serious people." Okay, that's what he should have told all of his anchors. Yeah. But he didn't, because he normally likes the kind of crap that they put out, but he thinks it's gone too far, and they need to refocus on tax cuts for the rich. Okay, they didn't say that, but that is the driving philosophy of right-wing media, and that's their whole point of existence.
Listen, folks, we need to talk about the bonus episode for our members. It is gonna be one of my favorite bonus episodes, one of my favorite stories in the news today I saved for the bonus episode. We're gonna talk about the emergence of dog restaurants. Are they okay or are they not okay? I think Cenk and I are probably gonna debate. We're also gonna talk about the latest dating app that requires AI to do the communicating for you in case you don't wanna actually have a conversation with someone you're thinking about dating. Those stories and more at tyt.com/join, become a member, and we'll see you there.
Indisputable has been named the fastest growing news TV show in the United States.